students, today we are discussing a very, very important, and a very highly paid job opportunity industry. We're talking about piloting. You must have seen our description in the bottom. And today we're going to talk about piloting. And for that, in the last episode, I have invited Rajesh, and who is having a full expertise in the airline industry. So today we have a Spartan College from US giving us the information about courses they offer in the field of piloting. So let me introduce you the Vice President of Spartan College. Hello.
Hi, Deepinder.
Hi. Can you just introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello, audience. My name is Christopher Marconi. I'm the Senior Vice President of International Development for Spartan College of Aeronautics and Technology. We're really proud to have Indo European as our authorized recruitment counselor and recruitment agent for India. And they've got an incredible reputation, and that's how we chose them.
Chris, just before meeting you, were discussing, a few months back about doing this podcast. And I think, Rajesh started this journey with us, where he's talking about, I share with you that podcast as well, that commercial piloting is picking up in this country big time. Right. I mean, when you talk about the number of aircraft coming into this country and the number of airports we are opening is at a very high speed. If you talk about any other country, how do you see the Indian aviation industry growing in the coming 10 years?
Yeah, directionally, the Indian aviation industry, in my opinion, is the tip of the spear in terms of global growth in aviation. So, at a macro level, Deepinder, the aviation industry over the next 20 years, and these aren't my numbers, these are numbers I'm giving you from Boeing, the largest aircraft manufacturer in the world, just published a report at the end of 2024. Over the next 20 years, for each of the next 20 years, there is going to be a net new demand for pilots and for technicians in the aviation industry, 70,000 new jobs per year, not including the jobs of people that retire because they get too old to do their job anymore. These are brand new jobs in aviation. So imagine 35,000 new piloting jobs, 35,000 new technician jobs per year globally. What we know is based on the forecast and the analysis that Boeing and others have provided on that is probably almost half, if not more, of those jobs are going to be created between the Middle East and Asia.
Okay, great. So basically, in overall, when you talk about coming to India, because I think this is your first time in Delhi, and you normally get students from across the globe. So India is becoming now a very popular destination for you to recruit students.
Right.
Because you also understand the country is growing and the number of opportunities in the aviation sector is going to be phenomenal.
Exactly. So to your point, before I get into Spartan, the opportunity in India relative to the global growth that we're seeing, we're expecting the 1.4 million new jobs that, first of all, those jobs can't be created there's not an Air Force or a government agency that could create those jobs. It's going to come down to aviation colleges, and it's going to be, people like you, Deepinder, that are leaders in the recruitment space that are going to help advocate on behalf of, the great opportunity and the great return on educational investment that students will have for pursuing aviation careers. In India, on top of the job creation that we just talked about in detail, in India, Prime Minister Modi said he's going to build 150 new airports in the next 15 years. And that is doubling the airport infrastructure of the country, which is incredible. So India's a very large country population-wise, and the population is really fond of air travel. So,
very true.
Yeah. And then, what's been, popular in the vernacular of the aviation industry is like two of the largest orders for Boeing ever just came 2 years ago from India. So Indigo and Air India each ordered 500 new aircraft from from Boeing. That's 1,000 new aircraft. Just those numbers are staggering in and of themselves in terms of the thousands and thousands of pilots and technicians that are going to be required to keep those airplanes efficiently flying and in the air at all times. So, or as much as possible, right? And that is going to be something that for sure in and of itself is going to require supply, student pilot supply, technician supply from outside of this country. And that's where Spartan comes in.
So, coming to Spartan, I am very curious to know more about the education you're providing, because recently I've started doing this career counseling podcasts, in which I'm talking more about the career, not the study abroad. Of course, study abroad is going to be one of the components, but I think the industry is also very important these days. Specifically, when we talk about commercial piloting, the last episode I did with Rajesh, he has explained in detail, what is piloting program and how student can study piloting program and the requirements in India and blah blah blah. All those things have been covered. Coming to Spartan, your college is in US and you are getting students from across the globe. I have some practical questions first, and then we'll move towards the other part. Why should I choose Spartan as my study destination for commercial piloting?
The reason that a student would go to Spartan, to answer your question, is one, it's 97 years old, and we've trained over 100,000 pilots and technicians during that time from 40 different countries.
Okay.
Secondly, most of the time when people think about going and studying aviation, they end up at a short form aviation academy, and that is not what we are. We're a very comprehensive aviation college. So we are an accredited institution. We're nationally accredited in the United States by ACCSC, but we also have accreditation by the Federal Aviation Administration.
Okay.
And they authorize and license our Aviation Flight Associate Program as well as our Aviation Maintenance Technology Associate Program.
Great. I think every student who doesn't know about it, but then I always want to explain them that when you come back from abroad after doing a piloting program, they have to pass examination to convert the license into Indian license, right? If I talk about as an institution, I have done my education with you, which is going to be, I think, 1.8 years, which is...
It's 17 months for the aviation program. Okay. And then the Aviation Maintenance Technology Program is 23 months.
So if I want to continue doing my commercial flying in US as a student, can I also see that as one of the options for me?
That's actually a great point, Deepinder, because, and I should have brought that up before, but thank you for correcting me and saving me. Because of the F1 visa and the associate program award that is being granted to people that graduate from it, each of the flight and the maintenance technology courses offer 1 year of OPT. So let's just talk about the flight program, for example. If you go to the flight program, you're going to get 250 hours of flying time.
Okay.
And with that, you're going to get your pilot's license, and you're also going to get a single and multi-engine rating from the FAA, which is very, very valuable. What also happens is you're going to be certified as a certified flight instructor. Now, think about this. So you have 12 months for your OPT after you graduate. And during that time, instead of paying tuition, because now you're a graduate from Spartan, you're actually going to be paid to be a CFI, a certified flight instructor. I'm not going to quote the amounts because they change, but let's say it's in the low to mid 20s per hour.
Okay.
And the point is you could accumulate up to 1,000 additional hours of FAA logbook flying hours,
which is most important. For any pilot, the logbook is the most important thing.
Yeah. So now you're getting paid to teach other students, a lot of it'll be could be in the simulator, could be up in the sky. But when you go back to India after that, now instead of just having 250 flight hours, which you earned at Spartan, in addition to your ratings and in addition to your degree, you've got another 1,000 hours in your logbook.
Okay.
And that's a big deal when you're going back to,
Absolutely.
one, go work at a charter airline and fly an aircraft, or get into a cadet program, and it really helps the optics of that.
Very true. I think the number of hours is the most important thing in this career, in this industry. It makes a lot of difference how many hours you've done. So if you've done the lesser hours, there's a lesser chance to have a better opportunity in the industry as well. But if you have more hours, specifically as you mentioned, that student can have 250 plus up to 1,000 hours because he's an instructor. But how many instructors do we need in the industry in US?
Look, I mean, it all relates to supply and demand, right? I mean, so if the deficit of jobs right now is 70,000 jobs that have to be created, the flight schools in the US, in all Anglophone countries for that matter, or any flight school, if you put all of us together, we're the only reason there's a deficit of that number is that we don't have the supply. Now, as the programs scale, as Indo European does its job to alert the Indian market of the opportunity to come study at Spartan, sure, more students are going to come back. So as the program scales, then the aircraft fleet scales at Spartan, and therefore we're going to have a bigger cohort every month, and we're going to need more flight instructors.
Also, when you said every month, you starts your program, the commercial piloting license starts every month.
That's correct.
And your other two programs in aviation?
So the Aviation Maintenance Technology Program starts 5 times a year. So
Okay.
that'd be January, March, July, August, and November.
So aviation maintenance,
Yes.
which is so when we say aeronautical engineering in India, do we because this is what we normally ask for students doing diploma in aeronautics, or they're doing diploma engineering in aeronautics, and these are students who go to airlines to work as a technicians.
Then we're saying the same thing.
Okay, but it's going to be 2-year associate diploma.
It's a 23-month. So we offer it on campus 100%, and on a hybrid format 100, and so the two ways you could take it. So let's just talk about the associate program. Is a full on-campus associate experience is 23 months. It's a $68,000 degree. You could look at the brochure; it's in there. And then for the same price, we offer it on a hybrid basis. So say you have somebody that is working at the airport already in New Delhi and is interested in doing this, they would take it over 25 months, except the first 12 months they would take from home. It would all be computer-based learning.
Okay, right. But let's say otherwise it's going to be 2-year programs. It's going to be an associate degree. It's not going to be a bachelor's. Let's say I come back to India and I have to get a bachelor's degree. What is my chances to get credit transfer?
So great point, Deepinder. We offer at Spartan a completer program for students that want to have a more advanced degree than an associate. So we offer a Bachelor of Science in Technology Management.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 31 months long, and so if you add that to the 17-month aviation program, simple math says it's a 4-year degree program, 48 months. And so then you have an associate degree, you've got your FAA licenses, you've now become a certified flight instructor, and you get a Bachelor of Science. Now, the Bachelor program can be taken online, on campus, or hybrid. It's completely flexible and customizable to the student, depending on where they live and how they what their best learning format is.
When we talk about the commercial piloting, So I think what I can understand now is that all your programs are about aviation, be it associate degree, be it bachelor's, be it commercial piloting. I think at Spartans, you only focus on aviation, have a very niche, but a very strong market presence also. So of course, this is what students also look like and look for, because students who are going for commercial piloting program, they don't go to universities. They go. I do have certain universities who are offering these programs, but all in the past, when people have approached me that they want to go for piloting program, they were always looking for a commercial flight school. They were not looking at a top rank university, to be very honest, which means the student actually have a great advantage, because your entire portfolio is about aviation only. And when coming to the commercial piloting, let's talk about the admission requirement for students who want to study commercial piloting. In India, you need to have a physics, chemistry, and mathematics. In for your piloting program, you have to have a class 12th examination with PCM. Do you also require something that you have to have physics, chemistry, mathematics in your high school?
We do not. We have a 2.5 or equivalent GPA requirement. We have an English requirement of the IELTS is like a 6.5, and that's because pilots have to be able to speak
Uh,
very clearly to the air traffic control tower. So
Very true.
that's like a table stake that must be accomplished. And I know you've got an incredible English program here that you teach, so that shouldn't be a problem for anyone listening to this podcast. We require a entrance exam, and you know, at least 100,000 people have passed the entrance exam, so that's a good thing. And the other requirements that are unique to the aviation flight program that don't apply to the aviation maintenance program are pilots are going to require what's called a Class 2 FAA medical exam, and also once an international applicant has received their visa, they have to go for TSA clearance, which means that the Transportation Security Administration of the U.S. does a background check and make sure that the person is acceptable per their standards, and that's it.
Great. So basically, there is no such requirement from your end that student has to have the high school physics, chemistry, mathematics. He can come with any subjects,
Correct.
and as long as he has passed this class high school, and he has an IELTS 6.5, he can start the course with you.
Exactly.
When we talk about students finishing the program, normally students sometimes start looking for jobs in US, outside US, European countries. Where do your alumni normally goes back? They go back to their home country majorly, or they are actually absorbed by bigger or smaller airlines?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, relative to international students attending Spartan, you would see opportunities for them to be hired by charter airlines, and or go work in the private airline sector, not working for it's less likely that they would be able to get a job with, say, a union-based national carrier like United or Delta, but there's many regional carriers in the United States and private charter carriers that would be interested in scaling and requiring pilots, quality pilots that Spartan produces. With regard to where the conversation started, the opportunity for the international students coming back to India at the end of their visa stay. And remember, applicants that get to, students that go through and want to do the Bachelor of Science in Technology Management get a second year of OPT. So now, if you do it and you're there for that fourth year, you could use your OPT while you're doing your studies, or you could, once you graduate, you could stay on and take another 12 months to go and further your experiential learning in your career and practice, and and maybe that could lead to a full-time job. So that's another benefit of attending Spartan relative to a short form flight academy.
So coming to the commercial piloting, you're saying 18 months of program and it will lead to 1 year of stay back on
OPT.
OPT. For our audience, could you please explain what is the OPT means?
Yeah. So it's occupational practitioner training, and it's something that is offered through for international students studying in the U.S. To get practical on the job training before their visas expire. And what students do, the ones that are super entrepreneurial at least, end up a lot of times that leads to their hard work, and their determination will lead to visa sponsorship and an H-1B visa, hopefully, for them to come and have a long-term residency in the United States.
Right. So we've covered the admission requirement. We covered the why Spartan. I think industries also we well covered. We all know piloting is a very very high paid salaries are there. In India and abroad both. Now the most important thing comes is the investment. Because piloting, of course, pay you back pretty decent salaries, but you also have to understand the student have to invest initially a decent money, in their commercial piloting licensing. Now in India, it's a cheaper to do piloting program, but there are a lot of students who want to go to US to do the program because of the various reasons. One of the reasons is that India is not cheap anymore. In the and some of the Indian institutions, piloting schools, flying schools are even expensive than US. There is a story I'll be doing with Rajesh next time, where he will be explaining me about the which are the schools and why they're very expensive. But let's say if student wants to study with partners, what kind of a money we're looking into this, how much money they should have in for the entire duration of 18 months for the education and living expenses, if you can break it.
Yeah, sure. So I'll quote the amounts. And so to think about the tuition amount for aviation flight, so that program, so we're talking about tuition, books, technology fees, uniforms, and all your the international student fees, so the processing of the I-20, et cetera. And what did I leave out? All the FAA licensing. I think I said that. So everything excluding housing and excluding living expenses like food and transportation is just about $100,000. Okay. So, and we bill that in thirds. So once the F1's been issued and the student, signs the enrollment agreement, then we would do billing for 1/3 of that amount.
So you're saying 18 months has been divided into 3 different parts of payment.
It'll be 3 installments.
And they have 3 invoices over the next 18 months.
That's right.
So the first thing is that they make the application, and then they get your interview from your flying school. They crack the interview, then they have to go and do the medical examination test, which is F1. You said class 2, and once they do that, they have to apply for a US visa. And once they get the visa, they have to pay the first installment, which would be approximately 35,000.
Yeah, and yeah, and you said everything exactly right. I mean, you've got a photographic memory. But I think you may have skipped the TSA.
Oh, TSA, of course.
Yeah.
TSA has to be there once they have got the visa.
Once the visa is issued,
absolutely,
they go and get cleared for TSA.
Okay, yeah, you're right. TSA done, all set. But then this first payment they have to pay before they fly to US, and as I will just mention, 35,000 USD is what we are expecting them to pay for the first installment.
That's right.
Second installment comes post 6 months, which is going to be when they have done how many hours by now?
Well, I mean, it's an academic year, so maybe it's you maybe it's 1/3 of 250 flight hours,
Okay.
but not exactly.
Okay.
And so it will be it would you would tend to see more flight hours stacked up in the second and third academic year
Okay.
when the students accumulated more classroom knowledge than they're
Super.
gonna. Yeah.
I got it. Now I want to put a break here. I want to say, let's say I'm doing my hours. Let's say I'm fail in my some subjects, theoretical or practical, either of them. I've already done my 4 months with you. I'm sure the exams are going to be after every 6 months, or they're going to be ongoing examination.
That's ongoing.
Ongoing. While ongoing examination, I might fail certain theoretical exams, or I might fail some practical exams. What is this going to affect my cost of my tuition fee?
It is. And
It is.
it is because so we have when we quote the $100,000 all in fees, it's not assuming that you are going to be retaking classes or sitting for FAA licensing for a second for multiple times.
Okay.
So it's because there's individual fees that are assigned to each of those FAA examinations, and so and might also part of it goes to the FAA, part of it is going to be being in an airplane and paying for fuel and
Yeah. Of course, the flying hours.
Right.
So majorly, the most expensive going to be the flying hours.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Most of the students who fail, I'm assuming that I have no knowledge about that. Maybe they will be failing more on the theoretical part or less of the practical part.
Just depends on the student.
Okay.
We try real hard to not let them fail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say the tuition fee is done. Students. So tuition fee, is very well explained that every 6 months they are not paying the tuition fee. When students pay this tuition fee, of course, this doesn't include their living expenses and the food. So let's say, do you have any accommodation arrangement on campus?
Yeah, we do. We have on-campus housing, beautiful student apartment living situations, and they run about $600 a month. When we think about living, so the apartment, the housing, and the food, the way we calculate it is, and it's baked into the I-20 amount that the student's going to have to prove that they've got liquid for the first 12 months of their tuition. So
Okay.
so it's $92,000. So let's break that down. So if it's $100,000 for the program, so let's just say it's about $6,000 a month. So 6,000 times 12 is 72,000. So what we're saying is you'd want to save about $20,000 for the apartment and living, and then food expenses. So what if you break that down, then you're saying it's $7,000 give or take for the apartment, and then about $13,000 for food, or about $1,100 a month for food.
True. So basically, I think $600 is still a decent price because I was expecting more than that, but I think that's a pretty decent money.
It's good living in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay, and also it's going to be shared living or individual living?
Shared.
Shared living. How many students going to live together?
We get like 2 or 4 depending on the format of the apartment.
Okay, so 18 months I've done my program, and I believe the final licensing is going to be in the end.
Yes.
Okay, so I've done my 250 hours, and now I have to do my final license test. Once I clear that, I'm a officially commercial pilot license holder in US.
And you are a certified flight instructor?
Automatically.
Well, that's part of it. It's part of the licensing, and you've got an FAA rating on instrumentation that includes a single and dual engine aircraft.
Okay, so they will have both.
Yes.
Okay, and in today's aviation industry, if you talk about the airlines do require these both.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a pilot and you're going out and you're going to seek employment and you can fly a dual engine aircraft or a single engine aircraft for a charter that makes you more valuable to them, because they're going to be running, they're going to be running both aircraft likely. And then, what happens when you go into a cadet program and you're thinking about how we travel around and fly around India, we're flying on jets. That's a totally different story, and people are going to be training in simulators, just because it would be very expensive to train on a $500 million jet that probably has a $30,000 an hour operating cost.
Absolutely. I think so. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for giving all this information today. I think the audience here now understood, because we are going to do more series on commercial piloting. I'm going to bring more guests. I think commercial piloting is going to become a very big, industry in India now, and a lot of young students are very, fascinated about pilots. So this is the culture in India. When you talk to students, the lot of students want to become pilots. Sometimes through army pilots, or air force, or even the commercial pilots. And I think a lot of students want to become pilot, but they don't know where to start from. So this kind of a content, will help those students to understand if they want to become a pilot, and if they have such kind of money. I think US is one of the best options for them, because we all know if you have a US degree or US commercial piloting license, that's the best in the world.
Yeah, I mean, you've said it. You've said it all. I'm not going to add anything to that other than to say the durability of a degree in aviation flight or aviation maintenance training is really interesting, because what we hear about every day, unless you're just living under a rock, is artificial intelligence. And there's not going to be a day anytime soon when civil aviation and like commercial aircraft are going to be flown by AI.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I think it might happen in 10 years from now, maybe 15 years now. But at least as of now, we can see AI helping the aircraft, flying the aircraft. But I'm sure we are not saying it, without pilot, the aircraft going, from one place to another place. Definitely not. That's not happening. So thank you once again, and looking forward to see you again in another podcast very soon. I hopefully in your next during your next visit.
Thank you, Deepinder.
Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.